Hi, everyone. Welcome in. How are you? Good evening. Hello, Miss Laura. Did you guys have a good day today? I thought tonight would be a good time to go ahead and finish up this trial that we've only been getting bits and pieces from, which is the one from the military couple whom had a fight after her birthday party, and he ended up fatally shooting her in front of the children. There's only 4 pieces to this. Hey, JPC. And this is the final piece. We have the closing arguments today, and we have the verdict that was dropped. Only Court TV had it, and they didn't give us all of it. I don't know. Maybe one day they'll come back and do the whole trial, because it was a very interesting case. A lot of interesting people surrounding the case. So I thought, hello, Bama. Let's get to the closing arguments. I'm trying to think, does anybody have any questions before I go into the closing arguments? Anybody have any questions about the case or anything you think I should post? Let me put this up really quick. This is the state. That's the one we want. We'll do the state first, and then we'll do the defense.
All right, please be seated. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, come on, prepare for your closing argument. All right, please proceed.
Everybody here is a bad guy except Jordan Henning. They spent, my God, 3 hours this morning telling you what a bad guy Jimmy Watts is, what a bad guy Jason is. They've spent days telling you what a bad person Ashley is. Sergeant First Class Ashley Henning, a soldier, a mother, the woman who said, "I love you." All of the things he said about her. There's not a witness to bring forth to rebut the heinous accusations from that man. The only person who can rebut anything he said about her is dead at his hands. There is no evidence to support anything he said. Where did this all start? I told you that a storm went through that Henning house. It was Storm Jordan. How did it start? It started with him. It's a lie. Recognize it for what it is. Folks, that's exactly what I'm asking you to do. It's a lie. Everything he said is a lie. And I don't think honestly, I don't need to get too worked up. You all are more than smart enough to recognize everything he said from that stand, to be able to pick apart his contradictions. I could stand here. I could run on 2 more weeks picking apart everything he said that was contradictory, flat false. They want to tell you they want you to see this. They want you to hear his story about it. I don't know what you make of that. She threw a remote control at him. Well, we don't get to hear her part of why. What is that? His swollen lip. I love this one. I love this photo. She bit his hand. She bit the palm of his hand. Let me say that again. She bit the palm of his hand. How do you bite the palm of someone's hand? Where does your hand have to be? Right up in their face. What was he doing, if that's what this is? What was he doing to put the palm of his hand in her mouth? He is going to tell you anything he can to try and get that EED instruction. It's not intentional murder, it's extreme emotional distress. But nothing in his story rings true. Hardly anything at all in his story even sounds remotely reasonable. He's the victim of physical and emotional abuse for years. I'll tell you the truth, I have no doubt he probably is a model soldier. You heard Sergeant Major Glass admit, though, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You might know what a man is like at work. He might be an exemplary soldier, but you don't know what his home life is like. And you mean to tell me, drip, 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 he suffered under this unbearable mental and physical abuse for years, and it hasn't affected his job performance? He's still a model soldier. He's able to perform at the highest level. We make him the driver for the general. And yet he has suffered and he has been so horribly affected. What's more reasonable? Who are the real victims in that home? Given what you saw in that video, isn't it more reasonable that she put up with the abuse behind closed doors for years? What's more reasonable is that maybe it went back and forth. Maybe she pushed back occasionally. What happened on this night, all these bad guys out here who wanted to come testify, they actually saw it. What was different about this night? There was a witness. People with no reason to keep it hidden. People he couldn't intimidate into being quiet. People who were going to call 911. He couldn't control them. And he knew it was over. He knew he went too far. What was over? His career? Yeah, his career. More than that. You heard this 20-minute video. Everything is me, me, me. You did this to me. What's really over? That image of the perfect soldier. That's what's over. His reputation. that evil that he's kept hidden from everybody for all these years. That's what's over. That's what's got him so worked up. Isn't it more likely she has been the victim? And who knows who else in that home has been the victim? More likely that he's harbored these resentments for years. He told you it was great at first, right? But it's all about me. It's all about me, me, me. And when she starts to do something that doesn't please me, I start to have resentments. I start to have anger. And for years, he gave in to those. He indulged in those thoughts. He indulged in those thoughts. She's not pleasing me. It's about me. And he nurtured those feelings, and that sprouted into resentment, and it grew into hatred. When he pulled that trigger, he had been harboring hatred in his heart for her. He's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Soldier Jordan and Family Man Jordan. Dr. Jekyll, the respected physician, the man known for his kindness and generosity, known for being good at his work as a physician. And he begins taking this potion that unlocks his dark side. A model soldier who begins indulging in those feelings of resentment. What happens with Dr. Jekyll as he keeps indulging in that potion, right? We all know this story. Eventually it overtakes him and he becomes that evil. He indulged in those feelings for years, and he pulled that trigger out of hatred. And you know, I love old movies, I love old books. I actually just read this book not long ago. In the 1968 version of this movie, Jack Palance is Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And in the closing scene, his friend, Mr. Utterson, is confronting him as is confronting Mr. Hyde with a gun because he knows this has to end. And Mr. Hyde tells him, if you kill me, you're killing Dr. Jekyll. And Mr. Utterson says, you don't understand. It's Dr. Jekyll who's responsible. Whatever rage he worked himself into, whatever hatred he had for her, he's responsible. He's the one who followed through on those emotions, who followed through on those thoughts. He surrendered to that baser self and became evil. And now he's using the same defense so many abusers try to use. Blame the victim. It's her fault. She made me do it. And you heard him say it, right? Before he killed her. What about this idea that he just reacted based on his training? It's a reflex. You watch that video for 20 minutes. That's not a reflex. This wasn't an ambush. He wasn't triggered. There was nothing like an IED going off, a mortar round coming in. There was no impelling force overcoming his judgment, like you'll read in your instructions. He is reacting in a chaotic environment. I will give you that. It is a dangerous environment. And who made it that way? He's not reacting, he's being proactive in a chaotic environment that he created. He is using his judgment. He's trying to manage the situation. He's trying to move the pieces around the battlefield that he created out of that home. Tries to get rid of Jimmy Watts because he became a witness. Get out of here. It's none of your business. Get off my property. He realizes 911 is being called. Ashley, call him, tell him. Switch from getting the witness out of here to getting control of the witness. He changes tactics again and again. Finally, when he realizes there's nothing more he can do, he realizes the veil is gone, his career is over, he's still in control. He's going to control how it ends. One way or another, he's in control. He doesn't just have a reflex and shoot her. He doesn't just react out of muscle memory and shoot her. He has a countdown. He knows the response time. And after he starts his countdown, then he tells them somebody's going to die. This is going to end in death. There is no trigger. There's no drip, drip, drip. That's nonsense. Has to be reasonable. So let's look at this whole evening. What's the spark that set off that hellfire that ran through this house? You heard him testify. You saw the video that covered essentially from the moment visitors left until Ashley Henning died. We waved goodbye in the driveway, came in the garage, and that's about where the video picks up. That was his testimony. What's the first thing you see? Came in the kitchen and she dared to defy his order. You know, he said it. You're going to shower. You're going to bed. You're going to let me serve you. It's not what can I do to help. How can I help you relax? Can I do anything for you? You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Yeah, sure, he's willing servant as long as it's what he's willing to do. What did she really need help with? I got the dishes. This helps me relax. Clean up your meat. He huffs off into the basement, locks the door. You can hear it. I make the decisions around here. I decide what I'm going to do to help and not help. I mean, you watch the video, and then you hear him testify about it. She was screaming at me. And I'm thinking, my God, what did I do now? Because it's all about him. What did I do now? Jordan, did you put the hose on the slip and slide? Mister, I want to serve you. He's not willing to do that. He's not willing to go outside and take the hose off the slip and slide. I told you to go to bed. I told you to go shower, and you're dismissing me. So watch how he responds. How does he respond? Jordan, help me with the slip and slide. Comes storming up there. What's the first thing he says? He lied. The hell does that have to do with anything? You're an 8-year-old kid. That's really where all this starts. Really. That's where all this starts. He's pissed off some poor little 8-year-old kid couldn't undo the slip and slide that he put together. Ashley couldn't do it either. She had to ask for help. I'll use Roger's word, the cockamamie story that he came up with up here on the stand. A lie is a lie. Why did you say that? That's her rule. That's her rule, and she makes the kids do push-ups if they lie. Do you think he gives a damn about her rule? Did he get so worked up to enforce her rule? No. It's just one more time today he's been defied. One more time today he wasn't the center of attention. Drip, drip, drip. Defied, ignored, not the center of attention, not paid attention to enough, not allowed to do the things he wants to do to help. Drip, drip, drip. You know, we've got everybody these folks who knew him for a year, folks who knew him for 10 months, come in here and talk about what a great soldier he is. They never saw anything like that from him. They never saw him behave that way. You even got neighbors. Never saw him behave that way. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's his image. It's his public image, and it's what he does behind closed doors at home. Nothing has happened yet. Nothing. And his response is to yell at Carter, the 8-year-old kid upstairs in the shower. Carter, get down here right now. Fix this slip and slide shit. And he's standing over there at the stairway waiting. Get out of that shower. Can't finish your shower. You're an 8-year-old kid, can't finish your shower. Get down here right now. Storms out into the yard with him. No, neighbors never saw him do anything like that. Nothing has even started yet. That's how he is. What about Jimmy attacked me? What did he say? What did he say? He said, I wasn't over top of her. He said I wasn't over top of her. Well, that's BS. It's not like I was hitting her. What'd you hear on the video? You could hear her. I can't breathe. You hear her say, I can't breathe, and then you hear Jimmy, get off of her. But you know what? From my perspective, I'm the center of the universe. She started this, and he's attacking me. Let me tell you something, folks. That is not what that means in your jury instructions when it says from the defendant's perspective. We'll talk about that. And here's where it gets real. Jimmy's yelling, stop, get off of her. No, Jimmy, run, call the cops. What's his response to that? He says Jimmy attacked him, and that's why he put Jimmy in a headlock. I don't know, it's not on camera. Puts him in a headlock until he submits, and he lets him up. Yelling at him to get out of there. It's none of his business. Jimmy told me he was going to get his effing gun. Didn't hear that anywhere in the video. But what did he say he did in response? Jimmy told me he was going to get his gun. I was scared. I ran as fast as I could, got my gun out of the bedroom and ran back down. I mean, my God, he was in the bedroom for 5 minutes yelling at Ashley. You know, and he couldn't even resist this stupid lie. I didn't know if I was going to even do this. Got an air gun, don't worry. There's not even any air in it. He is such a pathological liar. You're listening to it on the video. Jim says, what's that sound? While he's in the bedroom with Ashley, getting his gun. You hear this sound on the video. Everybody remember that? How many times did you hear that throughout this night? You heard it at least once in the bedroom, several times outside. What's he doing? Why are you hearing that? Call him, Ashley. Call him. Tell him. When I was a police officer, we carried shotguns for the purpose of getting out in a crowd situation where you need to catch people's attention. That sound of a gun cocking is intimidating. That was his purpose, to intimidate her. But he's such a pathological liar, he has to tell Jim, you know, that wasn't me charging the weapon. That was me putting the magazine in. One click, 2 clicks. He can't help himself. A lie is a lie. And that's all he does. Jimmy went and got a gun. I ran right back down. For that matter, some guy in my yard out front, I just told to get off my property, says I'm going to get a gun. My response is to go grab my gun and run back out and wait for him to come back. Maybe I want to call 911. But we can't have police involved here. And then Jimmy had a gun. I saw it. The only evidence in this trial at all that Jimmy had a gun is his lying mouth. No one there saw Jimmy with a gun. Jimmy said he didn't have a gun. Jason said Jimmy didn't have a gun. Where did Jimmy go when he left the backyard? He went out in the street. You know what he got? He got something a hell of a lot more dangerous than a gun to Jordan Henning. He got on the phone with 911. There's a scene in that video while they're struggling in the beginning over that slip and slide. A damn slip and slide. He was trying to tell Mr. Eggert that that little white blur you see sit down in the chair at the corner of the video is him sitting down in the chair. And that's when she grabbed him around the balls, is what he said. And she drug him 10 feet across the yard. Well, she must have been some kind of super soldier to drag a man that way across the yard 10 feet. You heard him talk about he reached out and tried to grab the railing, the banister. How did Carter end up between the two of you? It was an accident. I didn't mean to grab him. I was grabbing the banister, and I grabbed Carter. You mean to tell me she's dragging him and Carter 10 feet across the yard in that manner? And he never cries out in pain. You hear all kinds of things on that video, things crashing, this, that, and the other. I think I might let out a screech. Jim went back and went through that part of the video. I don't think he expected that. I don't think he expected to be held account. I hadn't thought of it this way. Yeah, I don't think he expected to be held to account. I think he thought he was going to get away with this. I don't think he thought he was going to have to explain every time he said let go. And Jim made him explain it. And you know what he did? He slipped up and told the truth. Let go. What'd you mean let go? That was the slip and slide. That was the tools. That was Carter. Let go, let go, let go. Jim's going through the let goes with him. What's the one thing he never said he meant when he said let go? Lie after lie after lie. Let's look at extreme emotional disturbance. You don't have your jury's sheets, your instructions. I don't even know what page it's on, and it doesn't matter. Self-defense. That doesn't even bear looking at. self-defense. We know what self-defense is. And the instruction will say that he was in fear of, roughly speaking, imminent rather bodily harm or something like that from Ashley Henning. She was sitting in a chair and he was lecturing her for 5 minutes and announcing what he was going to do. The idea that she was posed an imminent threat of any kind to him at that moment, we don't even need to look at the instructions. You know why he gets the instruction? He uttered, there's no evidence that she's a threat to him whatsoever, but his words. He uttered the words, "I feared for my life." Let's look at the extreme emotional disturbance on page 2. It is a temporary state of mind so enraged, inflamed, or disturbed as to overcome one's judgment. It's not just anger. It's not extreme anger. It's not being irate. It is so disturbed that it overcomes one's judgment. Doesn't say good judgment, doesn't say bad judgment. Overcomes one's judgment. And to cause one to act uncontrollably from the impelling force of the extreme emotional disturbance, rather than from evil or malicious purposes. If what you saw on that video is not evil and malicious, I don't know what is. The way he acted from the very moment they walked in that kitchen until the moment he runs out the front door, and a few minutes later when you hear the door click locked as he hit the lock thing on his phone driving away apparently. If that is not evil or malicious purpose, nothing is. You can stop right there. You don't need to read anything else. What he did was from evil and malicious purposes. EED does not apply. He did not, the doctors, the lawyers, the courts, the judges, everybody uses the word trigger. It's not in there. It's a convenient way for us to describe what is meant by this. Trigger is not the law. It is a verbal shorthand for us to explain what we mean. That's the uncontrollable impelling force. That's the event that caused this state of mind. That's what we mean. That's what we're talking about when we say that word. It's not in your jury instructions. But that so-called trigger, when you go on, that's the last couple of lines. Reasonable explanation or excuse, therefore. One of the doctors gave the example, the classic example of the man walks in on his wife, shoots one or both. That is a classic instant trigger. It is so emotionally overcoming, harmful, disturbing that he reacts. And we have recognized over the years that it doesn't have to be just like that. It can be something that goes into a longer period of time, but it can't have an interruption. It has to be constant. And it has to be reasonable, a reasonable explanation. The reasonableness of which is to be determined from the viewpoint of a person in the defendant's situation. Not his viewpoint, the viewpoint of somebody in his situation under the circumstances as he believed them to be. Well, how do you know what he believed? How do you know what he actually believed? Because you can't believe a word he says. What happens, Jim asked, happens when a young soldier gets in trouble for domestic violence? This model soldier who served our country well, apparently for 11 years, knows the answer. You face UCMJ punishment and you'll be discharged from the military. Uniform Code of Military Justice. Our military is a cross-section of our nation, good and bad. They signed a piece of paper pledging to give their lives. Something most people won't do, but they are still a cross-section of our community. They have undertaken, in my mind, the most noble profession. But they are still good and bad. And he knows he's a dedicated soldier. He knows it's over. Like we talked about, his career, his reputation, his image. Those cops come, my life is over. Let's talk about in that instruction. You don't have to flip to it. Is to overcome one's judgment and to cause one to act uncontrollably. Yeah, he's right. We're going to spend a minute on control. Judgment and control. First thing we know is it's all about his control. He ain't about to let loose control. It starts with you go to bed, and it moves on to Carter's going to do it. And then it moves on to Carter getting wrapped up in the middle of this, whatever it is that he's doing to Carter, whatever it is that he's doing to Ashley, that you hear Carter screaming. You hear Ashley saying, let go of him. You hear a lot. You hear whatever he's doing has terrified Carter so much that he runs screaming from that house. And nothing has happened yet. No trigger. Now, Carter's made it next door to call for help. Jimmy comes over, and we have a witness. Now we have a problem. We've talked about this. Now we have a problem. Now he has to take charge, really take charge. He's got to get that witness out of here. He's got to get Jimmy out of here, tackle him, put him in a headlock, intimidate him, tell him to get off his property, stay out of it. But Ashley really done it. She yelled, "Jimmy, run, call the police." Now we got to change tactics. You hear him ranting. You escalated this. You involved the neighbors. Now just getting Jimmy out of there, telling him to stay out of it's not enough. Now he's got to intimidate everybody. Get him to shut up. He's yelling at her. You escalated this. You involved the neighbors. He's got his gun in the bedroom, waving it around. Call him, tell him. Trying to get them to, obviously, get them to call the police, tell them everything's okay, disregard, 10-8. You know what hasn't happened yet? He hasn't snapped. He just snapped. All this stress, all this going on, he hasn't snapped. He's got a gun in his hand, hasn't snapped. Trying to get Ashley to call Jimmy's not working. A few minutes in the bedroom, trying that approach, didn't work. Now, Ashley runs downstairs, trying to put distance. Now he runs downstairs. Now he runs outside. Now he's yelling at the neighbors. The neighbor he's terrified of that has a gun, he's yelling, "Get back here. I'm not effing around with you guys. Get over here." Can't get him on the phone to intimidate him. Got to get him here in person to do it. And again, really, where is Jimmy at this point? Not threatening him with a gun. No, he's threatening him with that phone out there on the street. Comes down and he's yelling. Jimmy's not there, and he's telling Ashley, "You better go find him." And you know what hasn't happened yet? He hasn't snapped. But he does know time is running out. He's been working a plan to fix this, and his time is running out. His countdown starts. His plan isn't working. They're not doing what I want. I don't have much time. I got to make another decision soon. How much time do I have? Tells you what he's going to do. I know how phone calls go, he screams. I know the Hardin County response time, and he starts his 30 countdown. Gets down to 17, and he makes a decision. "This is ending in death," he yells. But what doesn't he do? Doesn't snap. Because made the decision, this is ending in death, but not until I say so, not until I'm ready. Not going to tell you who I'm killing yet. Maybe he hasn't made that decision yet. And what's Ashley doing? What has she been doing? this whole damn time. Please stop. Why are you doing this over and over and over? You know what I saw in that video? The single most aggressive thing I saw in that video from Ashley Henning, when she yells down for him to come up, she's over here, she's yelling Jordan up with slip and slide. He comes up and mouths off whatever it is that he said. And she walks over around the corner and she goes, oh my God. That utterance of frustration is the most aggressive thing you will see out of Ashley Henning that entire night. So he goes on, and as she's sitting there, hasn't snapped yet. No, he's got to explain why. He's got to finally make her listen. Listen to me, listen to me. You heard, as in the beginning, out there with the slip and slide in the beginning, what's this all about? She's not listening to him. When you hear her, I can't breathe, what's he saying? Listen to me. Now, she's in that chair, and he's there with that gun, and by God, she's gonna listen. He blames her. You pushed me here. I am such a gentle man. He tells her, this is the way it's gonna go. What's he do? He still doesn't snap. She says, if you're really a man, just put down the gun. In the first moment in 15 of that 20, 25 minutes that she raises her voice above a whisper, and you can hear her voice shaking. If you're really a man, put down that gun. And guess what he does? He still doesn't snap. That's what he says. This is how it goes. He says, almost 45 seconds later, you fucking blamed me. And he pulls the trigger. If anything, he is in complete control of his judgment. There's nothing reasonable about it. But there is a method to his actions. He is in full control. There is a sick, logical flow to what he's doing. There's a decision tree there to what he's doing. It gets out, one more. Gets out on that traffic stop. He's like a mile from the house. Gets pulled over right away. What's he do? He pulls over right away. Deputy Shoemate testified. Got him out of the car. Felony stop. Driver, put your hand out the door. Open the door from the outside. Driver, get out of the vehicle. Driver, raise your hands. Driver, raise up your shirt. Driver, walk backwards to me. Driver, get down on your knees. Gets him in handcuffs. He complies with all that. Gets him in handcuffs. He's totally compliant. And he tells Deputy Shoemate that he threw a gun. He threw a gun because I didn't want you to think I was a threat. And he makes another decision. His tactic has changed to manipulation now. And you see the video when they come back with the EMT to check on him. He's banging his head on the back of the shield, the cage. He's crying, saying, shoot me. He didn't want to die. He threw the gun so we'd know he wasn't a threat. He came up with somebody else who had a gun, somebody who could be a threat to him, somebody who couldn't intimidate. Don't want to be a threat. Can't find EED if there's malicious purpose. I've said over and over, I think at this point, if this isn't malicious, I don't know what is, but what are his words? The instant they left, you turned on me. That's why he did it. Just like I said you would, you turned on me. He testified up here, he was upset at her for overriding me. She overruled me on everything. This is all about his ego, his whiny little ego. You elevated this to the neighbors. Talking about the neighbors testifying or getting involved. She's turning the people who are my friends against me. Look what you did. You took it out on me. You blamed it on me. It's because of you. You pushed me to this point. And all, he remembers all kinds of good details in this story that help him. When he's up here talking to Jim, he can't even remember the things that should be easy to explain. You don't have to remember it. What was the problem with her mom? You've been married to her for 7 years. You don't know what the problem with her mom is? You can't tell me right now? Blamed it on me. Blame what on you? What's she always blaming on you? Been married 7 years. It's been a hellscape. Can't think of anything that she would always blame me for. I can't believe I need to go on. Malicious purpose to protect his little ego. Motive. The veil is gone. Everyone will finally know who he really is. My career is over. This is ending in death tonight. You got the neighbors involved. You pushed me to this. He thinks it's the phone call. It's ending his life. By God, she's the one that yelled call. He's going to end hers too. Vengeance. Reasonable. We talked about that. What's missing? You never hear him crying out in pain. All that ranting and raving about you blame me, all of that. I never heard you'll never hit me again. Never heard you grabbed me there for the last time, nothing like that. Never heard him yell, Jimmy, put the gun down. He supposedly sees Jimmy with a gun. He's supposedly so afraid. That's what's really going on. He's terrified of Jimmy with a gun. Now he's got a gun. He can intimidate Jimmy. Maybe he could say, Jimmy, put your gun down, if that's what he's really worried about. Jimmy, you better not come back over here if he's really worried about what Jimmy's going to do with the gun. I'm going to leave you with this. We have a tradition in this country that we do not leave a soldier on the battlefield. Don't leave them laying out there to die. That is exactly what he did. He created a battlefield out of that house. He shot her 2 bullets through her heart, and he left her on that battlefield to die. He is guilty of murder and nothing less. And why? That's why. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the closing arguments from the defense attorney. And I'm going to go and warn you, it's an hour and a half long. And then after that, we're going to watch the verdict.
And more importantly, thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I don't think there's going to be a lot that Mr. Carr or Mr. Lasowski will agree with me during this argument. But one thing I think they will, unequivocally, and I think I can say this without fear of contradiction, is I want to thank you for your time and your attention to this case. We have been here now almost 2 weeks. Tomorrow would be 2 weeks, except for the 2 Tuesdays. And it's asking a lot of persons like yourselves to come in here, take time away from your career, from your jobs, from your families, and sit on a case, especially one like this, which is so important. But if you remember on the very first Monday, when you all were out here and we were talking, you know, I brought up Runnymede, the Magna Carta. You're the continuation of that. As jurors, you are the barrier between them and there. Okay? That's how important your job is. And I thank you. I thank you for that. And I think they do too, to be honest with you. Now, I want to go over the jury instructions real quick. You know, we talked about presumption of innocence and reasonable doubt. The presumption of innocence, as you see it there, is verbatim from the jury instructions. And as Jordan Henning sits here right now, he's innocent. There's a shroud around him, it covers him, and that shroud is called innocence. And he will remain innocent until when or if you decide otherwise. The other major legal principle is reasonable doubt. And I'm not going to go through the jury instructions, but I tried to keep up with his honor as he was reading these. And I would bet you that you will find the term reasonable doubt at least 12 times during these instructions, if not more. That's how important it is. This is not a car wreck case where you say, well, 51%, they prove their case by 51%, or an incompetency case where they prove their case by a higher level. This is a reasonable doubt case. It always has been, it always will be. It's an important legal concept. And the reason I bring that up is because we talked about juror error when we were questioning you. How many people have seen or read about people who have spent time in prison for a number of years only to find out that they're innocent? And we all agree. We all agree that that's terrible. It's god awful. Okay? And we also agree that a person should not spend any more time incarcerated, taken away from his family, taken away from society, any more than he should be. We all agree with that, and I don't think they're going to disagree with that. The judge explained to you about, in his definitions there, extreme emotional disturbance. You know, we've never once tried to convince anyone that Mr. Henning suffered from a mental illness. We never did. Our Dr. Anderson told you that. Their Dr. Anderson told you that. But it is
JPC just had a wonderful idea. Let's speed him up a little bit.
a temporary state of mind, so enraged, inflamed, or disturbed as to overcome one's judgment, and to cause one to act uncontrollably from the impelling force of the extreme emotional disturbance, rather than from evil or malicious purposes. I want to touch briefly on that. I'll get to it in more detail later, but we've all seen this horrific video, and it's bad. I agree with that. I wouldn't even ask you to consider it any other way. But we all agree, our Dr. Anderson, their Dr. Anderson. When you see that, he was in as Mr. Jennings didn't testify to, another zone. Every witness, and we'll go through those in a second, that testified about Jordan Henning, every one. They'd never seen him this way before, ever. You heard it from his neighbors, the wolf pack. You heard it from his commanding officers. Chris Williams, David Bass, the elite of the elite, as far as enlisted men go, had him in his command. And we'll get over what they said later. But you heard them. You heard them. So now, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. Extreme emotional disturbance or reckless homicide is not an excuse or a justification for homicide. It never has, and it never will. And that's just the way it is. It never has, and it never will. It only distinguishes between the truly evil person, a mobster. You know, so-and-so's a rat, go kill him. Those are evil people. People who drug dealers. I gave you 5 pounds of cocaine or fentanyl or methamphetamine. You only sold 4, you kept 1. Boom, you cheated me. Boom. You didn't give me all the money that you should have gotten. Boom. Those are evil people. They are people who act with evil and malicious purposes. Jordan Henning did not. Jordan Henning is someone who snapped and they lost it. We told you on day 1, right up here when we were giving the court out, we told you, this is not a whodunit. There's never been any question about who did it. But it's important for you to think and to realize and to consider why it was done. Why did this happen? Why did this happen? We're going to get through that. When Jordan testified, he took the stand just a couple of days ago, I guess, I think Monday. You saw him. He told you. He ruined lives that day. No question about it. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. And that's why this case is so important. Not because it erases what Jordan did, but it differentiates from what he didn't do, which is intentionally murder Ashley Henning. He did not do that. He didn't wake up that morning and say, well, okay, this is it. This is the day. He didn't do that. And I believe that the evidence, I would submit to you, that the evidence that you've seen and heard in this last week and a half, clearly leads to that he was acting under extreme emotional disturbance or that he committed reckless homicide. Why do I say that? The judge in his instructions. It's defined recklessly. When he, Jordan Henning, fails to perceive a substantial and unjustifiable risk, fails to perceive it, that the result will occur or the circumstance exists. And it must be of such nature and degree that the failure to perceive it constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of care. Now, you saw the video, you heard the witnesses, and we're going to touch more on that in a little while. There can be no doubt that he failed to perceive a risk. He was in a rage, which had been triggered by events that happened prior to that. Triggered. Or as Dr. Anderson said in response to one of Mr. Egger's questions about how he had reviewed Mr. Jennings' statement to the police. The police took statements, transcribed, we get them, that's part of the court process. He reviewed his statement, but for some reason, he chose to admit that Mr. Jennings had said, man, he was in another zone. A retired military policeman. He said, he was in another zone. But in any event, I'm going to reiterate what I said. Extreme emotional disturbance or reckless homicide, they do not justify homicide. They never have, and they never will. But let me tell you this, what they do. Still significant crimes with significant punishments. Make no mistake about it. That's what they are. So let's look at the evidence if we can. The first person I think that testified was across the street neighbor, James Watts. He goes, but Jimmy, you remember him. He was a member of the Wolf Pack. Remember that? The Wolf Pack. Him and Bacher, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Jordan, and there may have been a couple of others. He described Mr. Henning, Jordan, when they got together over at each other's houses, fire pits, parties they went to, they had, when he was intoxicated, he was always a happy, giddy drunk.
How is it generally, Mr.? Usually it's a lot of fun, funny, friendly. Does get handsy. He likes to put his hands on the back of people's necks and grab my neck multiple times. I thought it was a playful thing.
He came in here, a year and a half later. Oh, he likes to put his hands on their necks and invade your space. That's what they said. That's what they really, that's how they knew him. That's how they knew him. Happy, giddy, drunk, put his hands on your neck. Jordan told you where that came from. It came from his grandfather who raised him, who was always, good job, son. It's a sign of affection. And Jimmy Watts even just told you the other day, and right now, he never thought anything about it. Let's see who Jimmy Watts is. The guy that doesn't like to hang around with, never liked it, really. There's Jimmy Watts. And I'm referring to Defendant's Exhibit number 9. That's Jimmy Watts, ladies and gentlemen. He talked about the kill list. They wanted to bring out the kill list that Jordan had done. What an outrageous thing. What an outrageous thing. He admitted it was fantastical. It was a joke. He told you that. And I think you all remember that. And the reason we know that he was a good buddy, what you saw, what you heard of Jordan Henning, is because Jimmy Watt, was over at Jordan's house all the time. Playing games, borrowing tools. Earlier that afternoon, he borrowed a spanner wrench so he could work on his own firearm. He would come over on Jordan and Ashley's date nights. I think there was some testimony that he came over uninvited that night, and Jordan had cooked some steaks for him and Ashley, and Jordan ended up giving him his steak. Derby party, birthday parties. Jordan was at his house when necessary, helping him with emergencies like, let's get the generator working. Let's bail water out of your basement. Let's cut down some trees because of tornadoes and stuff. So despite everything he tried, despite his best efforts to turn against Jordan Henning from this witness stand, it's all BS, it's poppycock. He kept going over there, he admitted that. Jordan kept coming to his house, he admitted that. And he also admitted, ladies and gentlemen, that when he was over there on June 26, 2023, when he left the home, everything was normal. He had no reason, none, to be concerned about Jordan's safety, Ashley's safety, or any of the kids. He told you that. But after all hell broke loose, and I mean hell, he went over to the house because Carter had run over, and what did Carter say? My parents, plural, my parents need help. When Jimmy arrived, he saw Jordan and Ashley sitting on the steps of the back deck arguing, which is apparently something they did very often. What did he say?
Ran to the backyard. I could hear them as I approached the house. Could hear shouting coming from the backyard. So being familiar with them and their property, went to the side gate, and they were both sitting on the back deck. They were sitting on the stairs, shouting, and they were both there at that time.
And did they notice your presence?
Yes, they acknowledged me, and Jordan told me that I was trespassing and I needed to leave right then, and this was not my concern, but to leave.
Okay.
Then for whatever reason, he and Jordan got into a scuffle. You remember that? After this brief scuffle ended, I think he told you, he testified, I know he did. He testified that Jordan had him in a headlock. Maybe this was one of the most important things. He did not see a gun anywhere prior to him getting up and leaving. How could Jordan have put him in a headlock if he was holding the gun? How could he? He told the police after this deed happens, he's interviewed by the police. This is not his transcript. They interviewed these. They transcribe them, and we get to see them, and we get to read them. Because that's the American way. That's the American justice system. What did he tell the police? After his scuffle, his and Jordan's, he was no longer a threat to Jordan. Remember, I asked him about it. Based on what you observed at that time, argument, chasing you around, where you submitted and you were no longer a threat to him, your own words, right?
Yes, sir.
I was no longer a threat. He didn't say I was never a threat. He didn't say I wasn't a threat. He said I no longer was a threat. Then he left, and Jordan told you that he heard Jimmy Watts say, I'm going to get my gun. Jimmy Watts denies that. But he reluctantly admitted he owned a gun. Jordan knew he owned a gun. They were all part of the wolf pack. Earlier that day, Jimmy Watts had come over to ask to borrow a wrench so he could work on his firearm. Jordan knew he had a gun. That's what he heard. Even Jimmy Watts reluctantly admitted to you all that he owned a gun. Okay. Do you own a gun?
Yes.
About all I'm going to say about Jimmy Watts. I might come back to him later. The second witness was Jason Bockert. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I think it was Bockert. Another member of the Wolf Pack. The drinking buddies, the party boys. We know that. He admitted it. Have that on the own? Yes, slide where he admitted he was. Okay, it's all right. He admitted it. He was aware of marital issues between Ashley and Jordan. He told you that.
And then you recall Ashley one time saying at a party, "I'm going home to bed," and the defendant said about going to bed with her. You recall citing that as an example to police?
I do.
And she said, "You ain't going to bed with me. I'm going to go to sleep." You recall that?
Yes, sir.
All right. The fact is that you said they were having marital problems. It was obvious they've been having marital problems. It was obvious they've been having marital problems for years. And that's what you told law enforcement at the time, correct? That's what the transcript shows, and that's what you told them, correct?
Yes, sir.
You know, I got to ask myself, why was that question so hard to answer? It was the truth. Why? Jordan had helped his family many times. They were buddies. They can come in here now, a year and a half later, and say, well, he's a sorry SOB, he's this, he's that. Didn't make any difference. They kept going over to his house, despite all these perceived personality defects, which they now detest. But they kept going. They were buddies. They were drinking buddies. They were part of the Wolf Pack. As a matter of fact, I think he testified. I know he did. I'm not to say think. He couldn't understand why there was a party on Ashley's birthday because we all knew she didn't like to celebrate. He wasn't invited. He and his daughter went over uninvited, stayed about a half an hour and left. That's his testimony. And when he left, everything was fine. He had no reason to believe that Ashley was in trouble. None. He also testified that during the incident, Jordan had snapped and was so enraged. As a matter of fact, all the years of their friendship, they're drinking together. They're partying together. If I'm talking too fast, please slow me down. He had never seen Jordan act that way before. Never.
At the prior birthday party for Jordan or Derby Day, there was no outburst, correct?
Correct.
I'll come back to him a little later. I think the next witness was a person by the name of Brandon Savat. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I'm a country boy from Hardin County. I know Smith, Jones, Rigney, and Ashlock, and Carr. Some of these other names I'm not too familiar with. His wife was a friend of Ashley's. And as a result, he became a friend of Jordan's. He was, at the time, he was a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. And Jordan was an E4. But yet they socialized together. They fraternized together. He described what happened when he got over there. They cooked out. He talked to Jordan. They drank. And when he left the home, he had absolutely no reason, none, to believe that anything was not normal and no reason to fear for anyone's safety. He had no concerns about any violence taking place. Everything was just like normal.
Right.
Right? Jamie Savat. I'm going to try to be nice, but how could you forgive her? She was hostile. She was loud. She used liberal profanity and was rude throughout her whole testimony. She was a close friend of Ashley's. Met her through soccer. It was an impromptu birthday party. Everything was fine when they left. Her husband told you that. She told you that. After they left, and until she got home, she didn't call Ashley, hey, are you okay? She didn't send a text message, hey, are you okay? Because she had no reason to believe that anything was amiss. And more importantly, she was pretty proud of the fact that she's a guardian ad litem. Well, a guardian ad litem is someone who works within the court system. They work with police officers. They work with social service agencies. And then she had an interview with a CID. Another one of these transcripts that I showed you. I've got hers, not with me, but she was interviewed by the CID and she never, ever mentioned that Jordan was a threat to his wife or children, ever. She testified, is it my job to come forth? Remember how loud and rude she was, profane? Well, despite working with the police and the court system and her strong personality, she never once believed that this marriage was in trouble or had any reason to believe it, because she knew how to intervene, how to get other people to intervene. As a matter of fact, she even told you that Jordan came to her and said, I need to talk to you about my marriage. She brushed him off. Riley was the next witness, I think. She was in a room with pink eye. Prior to that night, she had never seen any physical violence between her parents, but often heard her parents yelling and verbally fighting with one another. Other than the BB gun, she wasn't even aware that there was a weapon in the home. And then she expressed, well, they were pretty harsh under discipline. Well, Ashley and Jordan both were military people. I suspect, and I would submit to you, and I think it's a reasonable inference to conclude, that the military discipline in that home is a lot different from the discipline that occurred in her home with her mother when her mother was taken away because of legal problems. And perhaps now where she is, we don't know. But I think it's a reasonable inference. Tried a case once where, strike that. Then we had Jason Vance. He was the next witness. I'm going to tell you right now, I've known Jason quite a while. Fine guy, fine detective. I'm not in any way being critical of him or the Radcliffe Police Department or any other police department in this case. But he investigated the case till that night. He had never met Jordan, didn't even know who he was. Certainly never met Ashley. He knew nothing about them. He admitted to that. And more importantly, all this video that you are no doubt going to see again. And ask, he had to admit that no gun was ever brought into the situation until after Jimmy Watts had been there the first time and then left. And from looking at the video, it'd be fair to say that Mr. Henning did not go get the gun until Mr. Watts left.
Objection.
Hold on. Mr. Regan, here's what I would say. If you can get somewhere, I think everybody saw everything, but Mr. Regan, I understand the questioning. Just make sure you get there. Make sure you get there.
Well, you saw and heard, you didn't see it, you heard about this altercation on the back porch with Ashley and with Mr. Watts, didn't you, on the tape?
Yes.
Okay. And then after that is when you saw Jordan Henning go in and get the gun, correct?
Correct.
No gun was ever introduced. It's uncontradicted. Uncontradicted and even admitted to by the Commonwealth. No gun ever came into this situation until after Jimmy Watts left and said, I'm going to go get my gun. You know, I've gone through this, and I don't mean to bore you, and I hope I'm not boring you, but the important thing to remember from all of those witnesses, who were the Commonwealth's witnesses? Not ours, the Commonwealth's. Jordan was a good guy. They had never seen him act this way before. Not even a violent outburst. You know, I do this. I think most people do. Sometimes you get so frustrated, and as you expletive deleted, expletive deleted, expletive deleted. They didn't even hear that from Jordan, ever. And what happened that night, they all said, was totally out of character for him. Or as Mr. Jennings said, man, he was in another zone. Now, that's their case, okay? It's not ours. But all of that is consistent with the testimonies of Sergeant Braxton McCoy, Sergeant Lenore Wright, Command Sergeant Chris Williams. He was soft-spoken. He was willing to help out anybody, other soldiers. And we know that from Jimmy Watts and Jason Bockett, going over, bailing water out of the basement, starting helping their families. Sergeant Derek Coth. Command Sergeant Major David Bass. You've seen their clips of their testimony. They all testified. They knew him, they worked with him, they commanded him, and his character for honesty and integrity were above reproach. And then even though he was frustrated from time to time, they never saw any violent outbursts from him. No. Right there, never. Let's talk about, no, that was Jordan Henning. There's no disagreement about that, really. What led to the breakdown? What led to him snapping that night? Well, let's start with a toxic relationship. Braxton McCoy. What kind of marriage did they have, based on what you heard?
Based on what I heard, he's just toxic.
That was their marriage. Oil and water. The marriage itself. You know, they may have loved one another when they first got married. I hope they did. I know Jordan did. But the simple fact of the matter is this. Ashley Henning did not want to go to Fort Drum. She would have done anything to keep him going to Fort Drum. Nobody, Jordan says nobody wants to go to Fort Drum. So they got married. Drip. Remember that? After they got married, the marriage became a toxic relationship. Braxton McCoy just told you that. It's another drip. Jordan testified that while in Colorado, Ashley kicked him down the steps, concrete steps.
When we were in Colorado, not long after we got married, we got into an argument. And when I tried to leave the house, she had kicked me in the back down our concrete steps. I busted my chin. And I went to my NCO's house for the weekend just to let things cool off.
Another drip. Eventually, they ended up at Fort Knox. We know that Jordan was seeking help for his marriage. They went to marriage counseling. They went to a marriage retreat and went to see the chaplain. How many times, we don't know, but they went. Another drip. Jordan reached out by himself to other counselors and programs at Fort Knox. only to be ignored by Ashley. Another drip. Eventually, knowing that it's not a good thing in the Army to have to go to your superior commanding majors, discuss your marriage, he mustered up the courage to talk to Command Sergeant David Bass. Now, they were in New Jersey at Fort Dix. There was some acronym they used. Jordan, had gathered enough confidence from his superiors in his character that he was a driver for the top enlisted man at Fort Knox, the very top. And on occasion, a two-star general. People who are slouchers, who are troublemakers, they don't achieve those positions. I think we can all agree on that. But he went to see Command Sergeant Major Bass and said, I need to talk to you about my marriage.
He called me to ask me if he could come and talk to me. He had a problem. And I said, of course you can come talk to me. So he came to my room, and that is when he let me know that he was having an
Well,
issue.
don't tell you what he said.
Okay, understand.
He was concerned about the state of his marriage. Is that fair?
Yes,
Okay. And while he was talking to you, did he receive a phone call?
he did.
And who was it from?
It was from Ashley, his wife.
And did he put the phone on speaker?
He did.
Okay. Don't say what she said. But you heard the conversation.
I did.
Now, the things you heard, were they disturbing to you about what you heard from her?
They were disturbing, yes, sir. She was irate.
He reached out to Wolfpack members, Jimmy Watts and his wife, Brandon and Jamie Savat. I also assumed Bacher, but I'm not saying that for sure. His friends, they turned him away. Go see somebody else. He called the Radcliffe Police Department seeking help. Not once, but twice. The first time, I hope this is working, was on January, doesn't work good on white apparently, but it was 270-765-5133. That's the Radcliffe Police Department's phone number, non-emergency number. He called on September the 8th, and the phone call lasted 2 minutes and 34 seconds. So there might not have been much of a conversation that night. But look at the day before, on 9/7, excuse me, he called the same number. That phone call lasted 6 minutes and 39 seconds. He told you what kind of response he got. You're a man, you're a soldier. You know, our Dr. Anderson testified that that's the trouble men have when they report domestic violence. So what did he do then? I'm looking at I keep saying Commonwealth, and I mean our exhibits. Number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. Do you have one in hand? There you go. That's where she bidding. That's where Ashley bidding. I think that's where she threw a TV remote control at him one night. Eddie. Go to the next two, please. This mark across his chest. The fat lip. She threatened to destroy his career. Remember, she outranked him. She threatened to destroy the career.
She told me she would turn it around on me, and I believed her that she would. Because, yes, I was the lower ranking. She had more support for her chain of command than I did at the time. And then, yeah, when Ashley said something, you believed it.
She threatened to take Briley and Carter away from her. From him. Carter, the son I never had, the son I always wanted, the person I bonded with, taught him how to do things, worked with him. Briley, his own daughter, who he had never seen until she was taken away from her mother by the authorities in Texas. She was going to take those kids away from him. That's what she threatened. You remember when Command Sergeant Major Bass testified? You saw the clip. She was irate. What did Jordan tell you? I get back from that trip. His personal possessions were destroyed. His personal collectibles were destroyed. His t-shirt collections, his rock bands, Hard Rock Cafe, they were found in a bathtub full of bleach. The motorcycle, she cut the brake line. She cut the brake line on the motorcycle. Damaged the handlebars. And despite all that, he reached out trying to love her, be a husband to her. The lack of intimacy in the marriage. And I'm not talking about sex, okay? I'm talking about thank you, hon, thank you, husband, for being there for me. That kind of stuff. Sex is part of it, but I'm not going to let this devolve down to a lack of sex argument, because it was more than that. Lack of intimacy. What did he tell her? I just want you to effing love me and need me and be my partner. Never happened. Never happened. She had no respect for Jordan. Our exhibit number 10. This is his text message to Ashley. My wife doesn't validate me. My wife doesn't respect me. My wife doesn't allow me to make any decision without criticism. My wife doesn't love me or desire me. My wife doesn't allow me to fail in life. My wife wants what she refuses to give. That was their marriage. Sad, 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 sad. We'll talk more about that later. On Monday, in his opening statements, Mr. Carr told you that the day before, on June 22nd, severe storms and tornadoes came through Hardin County. He took his family, Jordan, took his family down to the basement for protection. Who would not go? Ashley. Took the kids down there. He went down there. He asked Ashley to come. I'd say he literally begged her to come down there for her safety. She wouldn't come. Then he stayed up all night watching the sump pump, because he didn't want to have happen in his basement what his buddy, Mr. Wise, member of the Wolf Pack, had his, where Jordan was over there helping him bail water out of the basement. Sad situation. Sad. The video. Then you saw the video. I'm not going to make any terrific. Terrible. It's god awful. And I don't doubt for a minute that the Commonwealth is not going to play it again. But remember, we were questioning during board hour. You promised me. You promised Jordan Henning. You promised the Commonwealth, and you promised his honor that you were going to listen to all the evidence, not just selected parts. I'm asking you to do that, ladies and gentlemen. But during the video, what does he say to her as he's trying to clean up? Let me serve you.
Now
innocence that you see is clean. Maybe girl. Stop stressing. I'm not stressing. But we hear you listen. Listen. All right. Listen. Okay. Okay. Now, listen. I'm trying to do this. Just heard you. Okay. Okay. Here's that. I will. So, what's her?
Mr. Lisowski, in his cross-examination of Jordan, asked Jordan, accused him that he would do anything to save his career. Anything. If you think Jordan Henning was in control of his emotions, his rage that night, think about this. How did he think that committing reckless homicide was going to help his career? It wasn't. If he was in his right mind and was in control of the situation that night and was not suffering from extreme emotional disturbance, why would he do this in front of the cameras that he helped install? Think about that. The intoxication. They're trying to make a big deal that he was intoxicated. There's no doubt that Jordan and Jimmy Watts and Jordan Bacher and a couple of other people, maybe even Brandon Savat, like to drink alcohol when they were together. He kept saying this, he's intoxicated, he's intoxicated, he's intoxicated. But you know what we didn't hear? You know what you did not hear? What was his blood alcohol level that night? They never told you. They never put that into evidence, and they never told you, and I'm going to submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that they didn't want you to see it. I'm going to tell you that right now. If he was so intoxicated, why didn't they bring in and show you his blood alcohol level? They didn't do it. But on that god-awful tape, that horrific tape, you never saw Jordan Henning staggering. You never saw him slurring his speech or exhibiting any other types of signs of intoxication. It's on the video. As a matter of fact, he was intoxicated. What difference did it make? Everybody that knew Jordan and that drank with him described him as a happy, giddy, happy-go-lucky drunk. Not a mean, not a violent drunk. And I would submit that everybody in this courtroom have seen mean or violent drunks at some point in their life. That was not Jordan Henning. The triggering events. What happened after everybody left, when everybody thought everything was okay? It caused him to it triggered him. In his opening statement, Mr. Carr told you that storm clouds at night before, and then the next day, storm clouds were gathering above the Henning home. Completely agree with that. No dispute. But what he failed to tell you is that this storm had been building for years. Years. And based on those triggering events, Jordan lost control, he snapped, he broke. Period. His bucket, that our Dr. Anderson told you, had been filled by the drip, 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 drip. You know, I used this in opening, and we all agreed that was annoying. How about the constant drip, drip, drip? We all agree that Jordan became enraged that night. Totally out of character for him. You don't have to believe me, believe their witnesses. Okay? I think mine are important too. If you want to disregard all of them, believe theirs. Out of control. Never seen him that way. Totally out of character. Man, he was in another zone. He lost it and he braked. No one's disputing that. You can see it with your own eyes on that video. He tries to show affection to his wife outside. Don't touch me. The squeezing of the testicles. The physical rejection and the total emasculation of Jordan Henning. Watts coming over to the house with a gun, or saying he would. Jordan's perception of that. And remember, from the instructions, you've got to determine everything from the viewpoint of Jordan Henning that night. We don't have the luxury of a year and a half coming in later and saying, oh, well, I would have never done that. Right? I can never do that. That would, it's from the viewpoint of Jordan Henning that night at that time. We know that Jimmy Watts had a gun. He said he was going to get it. Jordan believed him. And that's when the gun got introduced into the scenario. Now, I spent a lot of time during the testimony talking about the national training centers, the combat schools. Very strenuous. Jordan had been 9 times in 11 years. What do they teach you at the Army? I call it combat school. They teach you how to survive. You know, thank goodness I've never been in combat. These soldiers that testified have. They've been at the National Combat Center, and I asked them, I said, well, you know, Sergeant or Command Sergeant Major, when you're in Iraq or Kuwait or anywhere at home, the enemy is shooting at you or you perceive a risk, you don't have time to think, oh, I wonder what kind of guy this is. Did he go to church last Sunday? Does he have kids at home? Are they good kids? You don't have time to do that. Boom, boom, boom. It's reflexive. They teach you how to operate on reflex. Reflex alone. That's it. Muscle memory. You know, when I coached back in my day, when I coached Little League baseball or football, you tried to teach the kids muscle memory. Army calls it reflexivity. I don't know if there's any difference. The National Training Center, you're familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
I call it combat school.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're in actual combat, and there's somebody over there shooting at me, I don't really have time to consider, well, I wonder what kind of guy this is. You know, how many children he has.
For sure.
Do you have time to do that?
No.
And this is for the reflexive.
Well, yes, so that's where the reflexive comes in. Again, it's training for automaticity or reflexivity, so that you are responding, your body's responding, and you know, again, it's muscle memory. You know, it's like, you know, pulling on more procedural memory versus more declarative memory, where you're doing a procedure, you're doing an overlearned act. And, you know, for example, you know, in weapons training, you learn, you do hours and hours of drills and things like that, so that, so if you have a weapons malfunction, you perform certain tasks, you perform sports, right? Which is how you clear a weapons malfunction. And you do it over and over and over again to the point where when something happens, you just kind of go through it and you're not actually thinking about it in a declarative way, in a way that you can describe. You're just kind of procedurally doing it.
Well, that was important. Because Mr. Wasowski, when he was questioning Mr. Henning, he stated that when his gun malfunctioned, Jordan's, he goes off screen, you can hear the click, click. He called it sliding, racking the gun. I think Jordan called it sliding the magazine into the, whatever it's called. And he was in control. He knew exactly what he was doing. Poppycock. That's what that is. He just heard it right there from the doctor who had not only just a doctor, he's been in the Army, he's been to the training center. They teach you over and over and over and over and over to where it's an automatic reflex that when your weapon jams, you take care of it. And that's what he did. Another sign, ladies and gentlemen, that he was enraged, he had snapped, he was broke, and he lost it. 9 times Jordan Henning's been there, being trained, being trained, being trained, being trained. Our Dr. Anderson, he told you that, yes, sometimes good people just do bad things. I agree with that. I don't think anybody would disagree with it. But when you're drip, 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 drip for 6 years, your cup overflows. That's what happened that night. No doubt about it. That's what Dr. Anderson told you. I want to talk about their Dr. Anderson. The man that came in here yesterday, I think. Well, there are two Dr. Andersons in this case. Our Dr. Anderson, who you just saw, and their Dr. Anderson, who you saw yesterday from the stand. The easiest way that I know for you to understand the difference between the Dr. Andersons is this. Our Dr. Anderson reviewed all the evidence, every bit of it. We sent him everything. We made sure he had benefit of everything. Their Dr. Anderson told you, I only spent 1 hour with Jordan and reviewed only selected portions of the case, but everything that the Commonwealth has sent him. Even he agreed. And had he been made aware of all the evidence, man, he was in another zone. Jennings, the neighbor. If he had seen it or known about it when he was going to interview Jordan, he would have taken it into consideration. What did he say?
You would have given, and he would have reviewed anything the Commonwealth gave you.
Or the defense, yes. Any evidence that came to me, I would have reviewed it.
Except we didn't know you'd actually interviewed or done anything till they gave us the report after it all happened.
That's very unfortunate.
They never gave anybody in Jordan's defense the opportunity to be there. And he told you that was unfortunate. Our Dr. Anderson, who saw all the evidence, said there were many triggers that led to this night. He told you that regarding extreme emotional disturbance. And would you explain to the jury what you mean by extreme emotional disturbance?
So extreme emotional disturbance just means that not a mental illness, but just there was something of extreme emotion, rising up that caused some person to be so enraged, inflamed, disturbed that it precluded them from sound judgment and it impacted their actions in that way.
There, Dr. Anderson, he agreed with us.
It's a temporary state of mind. Would we agree?
I believe so, yes.
All right. A temporary state of mind, and a person becomes so enraged that he acts uncontrollably and his judgment's overcome. That sounds like extreme emotional disturbance, doesn't it?
Yes.
All right. And the reason it's overcome, it's not from being evil. It's not from a malicious purpose. It's overcome by the disturbance, by the rage. Correct?
I would agree with that.
No disagreement between their Dr. Anderson and our Dr. Anderson. That Dr. Anderson, he admits that physical attacks are a triggering event, such as grabbing someone by the testicles.
Physical assault of any kind could be triggering. I think that's obvious.
He did not deny that words can be a triggering event.
You're aware that words can be triggers?
We could open this up to many things. Again, that would be up to the jury to decide that.
He didn't deny it, did he? I mean, as a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, this Dr. Anderson, theirs, he reviewed, and he only reviewed what the Commonwealth of Kentucky wanted him to see. He told you it was unfortunate that we weren't given the opportunity to be there and contribute. We didn't even know, we knew he would be going. No one let us know when he was going to see Jordan. They controlled the evidence. And it's they're Dr. Anderson's own words. It's unfortunate that we weren't there. Certainly could have changed his opinion to where he would have agreed that there was a triggering event or events. Dr. Anderson, our Dr. Anderson, the one who reviewed all the evidence, told you there were many triggers that night. The only one he saw on camera was, hand me the gun, be a man. Be a man. More emasculation of Jordan Henning by the woman he loved. You know, I've been practicing law here for a long time. Some might say too long. But the rules of court are such, when they give opening statements, they get to go first, we go second. Then when we give closing arguments, we go first, they go second, and they have a chance to get up here and rebut everything I just told you. They think they can. I don't have that opportunity. So this is the last chance, the very last chance I have a chance, an opportunity to talk to you on this man's behalf. So what are they going to say? I don't know. But there are certain things that I can anticipate. Because this is not my first rodeo, quite frankly. Jordan was in total control and he was given a countdown on that video. Poppycock. It was all part of that continuing snapping of those triggers. If his marriage was so bad, why didn't he get a divorce? You know, why didn't he just go get a divorce? Well, anytime anyone gets a divorce, it's a major step. It's a hard decision. A lot of people stay together for reasons that have nothing to do with love. Financial reasons, kids, children. And nobody wants to admit failure. Nobody. Jordan told you why he didn't get a divorce. Riley and Carter and Ashley would make it very hard on him because she outranked him. Don't claim to know a lot about the Army. I probably learned more about the Army in this trial than I've known in the last 10 years. But in the Army, rank means something. It's important. But I'm going to submit to you, the real question is, you know, not why did he get a divorce? Why didn't Ashley get one? There was no intimacy in the relationship. Get away from me. Don't touch me. The text message, you saw it? There's nothing other than those 3 children. It wasn't because he didn't try. Maybe she didn't get a divorce, ladies and gentlemen, because she outranked him. She knew she outranked him. She had the upper hand in the marriage, and she knew it, and she milked it for all it was worth. They're going to tell you, they're going to spend a lot of time, I think, they're going to spend a lot of time telling you that he, Jordan, was in complete control of this situation. And I'm going to submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, based on the evidence you've heard in this trial, the testimony you've seen this morning, nothing could be further from the truth. It flies in the face of all evidence from either side. Great guy, never saw him act this way. Soldiers, great guy, had no reason to believe that he had violent tendencies or even ever saw violent outbursts from him. Man, he was in another zone. And I go back to what I said earlier. If he was in such control, I mean, I'm just a country boy, okay? I was born and raised right here in Hardin County. If he was in such control, why would he shoot somebody in front of a camera that he installed? Not even the Commonwealth of Kentucky has called him that stupid. Mr. Osowski says, well, your career was important to you and you didn't want to lose it. Well, I don't know anybody that wants to lose their career. I've been doing this since 1980. Before that, I had another professional degree. And I still, from time to time, engage in that career. Very rarely, because I don't want to lose it. I work too hard to get it. Nobody wants to give up their career. But if he was in control to that level, what do you think he was doing to his career by committing reckless homicide? Think about that. What did he think he was doing to his career by acting consciously? He wasn't. He wasn't. Now, the judge has told you, you've got several choices here to choose from. You find him not guilty. You can find him guilty of murder. But in order to do so, you've got to find that he acted intentionally with an evil purpose. He didn't do that. His honor has struck that. Mr. Carr told you on Monday, last Monday, 2 Mondays ago, the penalty for murder was 20 to 50 years. That's what he told you. Manslaughter 1, that's a notch below murder. That's the extreme emotional distress, which I think we've clearly shown. And remember, the burden of proof is on the Commonwealth to show that he was not acting under extreme emotional disturbance. The only evidence they presented that he was not was through their Dr. Anderson, who did not have benefit of all the evidence, who did not allow Jordan Henning to participate in that examination, which he himself said was unfortunate. Terrible. It's more than unfortunate, it's terrible. Manslaughter 2nd, it's another choice. It's another notch below. But quite frankly, that's for people who are violent, know what they're doing, and they don't care. Now, I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that is not an option in this case. Then another notch below murder is reckless homicide. In the instructions, and these can be confusing from time to time, His Honor has instructed you that when somebody acts recklessly with respect to a circumstance or a result, they fail to perceive a substantial risk and an unjustifiable. They fail to recognize an unjustifiable risk. The result will occur. You've seen the videotape. It's terrible. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Did he perceive anything that night? Did he perceive anything, especially after Jimmy Watts said, "I'm going to get my gun"? Jimmy Watts told you. They were sitting on the steps, arguing, until he and Jordan got into the scuffle. And he said, "I'm going to go get my gun." That's one of the many triggering events in this case. I don't think anybody thinks that this is a intentional act. He's not an evil person. In order to convict him of murder, you got to find that he's an evil person. And for anyone to think that honestly flies in the face of all the evidence you've heard in this case. This is either manslaughter 1, what we're going to submit to you, because he was acting under extreme emotional disturbance, which led to this result, which was triggered by all the things that had festered over the years. The lack of help, he didn't even get from his friends, his so-called friends, his drinking buddies, their fair weather friends. Then it triggered. It triggered. That afternoon, that night, and it had to be that night because everybody's testified that when they left the house that night, everything was normal. It was okay. So you got manslaughter 1 or reckless homicide. One thing for sure, It ain't murder. It ain't murder. Jordan Henning is a man who enlisted in voluntarily, joined the United States Army, served his country admirably. And despite all of that, his friends have left him on the battlefield. He snapped, he broke, he lost all control. He became so enraged because of all the triggers we've gone over. That he acted in a temporary state of mind, so enraged, inflamed, and disturbed as to overcome one's judgment. It caused him to act uncontrollably from the impelling force of the extreme emotional disturbance, rather than from evil. That's the instruction, that's the law the judge gave you. Ladies and gentlemen, don't leave Jordan Henning on the battlefield. Don't leave him there. Thank you.
Oh my. So glad that one's over. Okay, are we ready for the verdict? Because guess what? No, I'm not going to give it away yet. Verdict. Here we go. Wait, hang on. Do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, foreperson of the grand jury or of the jury, has the jury reached a verdict? All right. If you'll hand that verdict to my bailiff. And before I read the verdict, is this verdict unanimous for all 12 jurors? All right. I'll ask the defendant and his counsel to please rise. I want to caution everyone again, there will be no outburst. It's inappropriate for any parties, counsel, anyone else in the courtroom to react in any way to the verdict. So I'm looking back on page 11. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree manslaughter under instruction number 6, signed by the foreperson. Again, let me ask you, foreperson, did I read that correctly, and is that all 12 jurors agree with that verdict? All right. You may please be seated. Counsel, if anyone would like to review the verdict form and or poll the jury from either counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Anyone? All right, you all would approach.
I cannot wait to have this conversation because still with us, trial attorney Wendy Patrick. Wendy, before we get to you, let me just weigh in with you on our emotional reaction to this verdict and your thoughts, Michael.
Yeah, well, you look at it this way, it was a huge victory for the defense. This is what they wanted. But I am struggling with the facts of this case and jibing that with this jury's verdict. I mean, they're sitting there, they're in the courtroom. You have to respect that, and I certainly do. But the way this went down, I didn't feel like they had proven that there was this extreme emotional disturbance. He seemed very calm and making decisions very clearly. I think other witnesses testified to that as well. There didn't seem to be this extreme emotional disturbance. Judge didn't buy it, but the jury did.
And that's what I want to ask Wendy about as well. I don't disagree with you, Michael. And Wendy, the difference between murder, which was the premeditated murder, versus what he's convicted of, the manslaughter, showing that really they bought his story on the stand, that he had.
I don't want to listen to all that. We're going to go and watch the sentencing now.
Ladies and gentlemen, jury, in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, we would go right to the sentencing phase of the trial, okay? I've had that discussion with the attorneys concerning witnesses that they would put on. Now, what I mean about that is we have what's called truth in sentencing. Part of that truth in sentencing is understanding first from the Commonwealth. It's a mini trial. Commonwealth can do an opening, they don't have to. Defense can do an opening, they don't have to. They will hear some evidence just like we did last time for the sentencing portion of the case. Truth in sentencing means most likely from the Commonwealth, you will hear from a probation and parole officer that will tell you the time that you can give for this charge, how much percentage of that before a person's up for parole, things of that nature. And then also you can hear impact information. You can hear mitigating testimony from the defendant. There is going to be some testimony to that. Being as it is late in the day, here's what I would ask you to do. It's going to be my call, all right? I want to make sure you know it'll be my call in discussing it with the attorneys. Here's what I would ask you to do, and the attorneys are in agreement with that, because there is a ability to not be sequestered after the verdict is in, but again, that's my call. Here's what I would ask of you. Why don't I return you back? You all discuss amongst yourselves, okay? Someone might have something this evening, 4 things to not be able to stay longer, but then some people may have something tomorrow morning, because what we would do if we didn't stay and get it all done today, we'd come back tomorrow for the sentencing portion of the case. So I want to give you 5 or 10 minutes to go back, discuss, and I would ask that the foreperson let me know when they're ready. If I would just send a note out. Or send a note out what the jury would request. I'll bring it in front of the attorneys and we'll have discussion on it, okay? Let's do that. Give you about 5 or 10 minutes. When the foreperson's ready, just give that note to the bail. Thank you. Please rise.
All right, let me forward on to this. He's still crying. He's been
Okay,
crying
so
since
you
he
heard
got
the
there.
judge there essentially telling this court down in Kentucky they usually would go right into the sentencing phase. But the jury had the option of whether they wanted to stick around and do it or some other options as well, because what he was going to do, he was going to sequester this jury until they came up with a verdict. So the question is, will they be sequestered if they start tomorrow? Do they want to continue? The biggest issues I thought was where he shoots her. Then he goes back and reloads the gun and comes back.
For the jurors, for those men and women watching
I'm
that,
trying to get to the
sometimes without a
part where
personal
they do
frame
it.
of reference as to how in the world will. There was also this element of whether you want to call it disgust or contempt. Those
not
emotions
show
were
it?
mixed in there as well, and that may very well factor into the decision as to what he deserves now as a result of this conviction. This is, all over the country where jurors.
I guess they didn't show it, but I'll go ahead and tell you guys what they said, what they came back with, because I do have it pulled up here. Let me share this tab with you guys. See, Court TV has this all laid out, the daily trial updates. And it said that they sentenced him to 20 years. First-degree manslaughter, and he was later sentenced to the maximum of 20 years. I'm trying to think. And honestly, that's what they wanted, but I guess they wanted they wanted less years probably. I don't know if they're going to. I don't know about parole and how that works in Kentucky. Does anybody know about Kentucky? Yeah, so the Karen Reed trial, Nanya was asking me about that. I don't know what we were watching. We might have been on Sarah Boone or we might have been on Daryl Brooks when Karen Reed first started. And I never got into that trial. And there was so much to it. And then so much happened with it. And I was just like, okay, I can't start from here. I just can't. I was going to do the, what's her name? The mother of Charlie. I was thinking about, I know we've talked about it. I don't even know if I can do hers. I think it's going to be a timing thing too. It's going to depend on when it happens because we have several that we really want to watch. A couple of the ones that we would say would be priority would be Courtney Clenny, um, Corey Richens. I think we're going to start watching. We'll watch Lori Vallow Daybell. We'll watch hers coming up here. I think that's probably the next one. April 4th. I'm still trying to get into that Zoom on Daryl Brooks' hearing that he's having. I don't even know if you call it a hearing. I guess it is a hearing. What was the other? What are the other ones we've been doing a lot. I wouldn't mind like keep. I would like to keep kind of doing clips on this Nicole Rice trial. Ooh, hang on, I gotta sneeze. Oh, God bless me. I would really like to do as much as I can on that because that to me is just an interesting trial. Today they did a reenactment, or they showed the video back then in 2007 or 2008 when they tried to do the reenactment. It was really interesting. So I'm working on some clips of that. We're not doing anything having to do with Madeline. Is it Matt? What was her name? Soto. We're not doing that one because that was another one that just came at a bad time. There's a lot of high profile cases I don't do. I don't know why. Sometimes I feel like if a lot of people are doing the cases, then it's like I want to do something different. But if you guys have other ideas, let me know. I was trying to think who else is coming up. This one, though, ended up just being a surprise to me because I said, well, it was just interesting. And I started doing the clips on Court TV. And I bet Court TV wished they would have done this one over the snowplow trial because the snowplow trial has been a snooze fest, in my opinion. But finally, the jury started deliberating today. And they're going into they're going to come back tomorrow and finish deliberating. Hopefully we'll get a verdict tomorrow and I can be done with that trial. I started it, so I wanted to finish it, but ugh. You know, one that I really wanted to watch was Delphi. They didn't show that to anybody. That's another thing. Yeah. Bama says I can't do trials that involve kids. That's the other thing too. It seems like there's so many trials that I'm interested in, and there are children involved in them. I'm just kind of like, ugh. I know y'all don't like those. Isn't that crazy, JPC, that the judge in the snowplow trial he sent them home at 4:00 today instead of letting them deliberate? That makes no sense to me. That judge is so strange about like he likes to take breaks. It's like that trial could have been done and over with well before today. I think they're going to have a verdict tomorrow too, Bama. All right. Well, I've kept you guys, I would say entertained, but not really. for almost 2.5 hours. I've held you hostage for 2.5 hours. In Kentucky, the parole board decides if a person qualifies, so it's not in their sentence. You think JPC thinks that the judge is a smoker? So what are you saying? Are you saying that we smokers are lazy? No, I'm just kidding. Everybody draw off. It's time to leave the stream. Go check your faucets. Make sure you don't have anything flooding tonight. You just looked it up, and thank you. All right. Well, I'm glad that okay, on a serious note, I don't want to be disrespectful on this case because this mother has, these children have lost their mother, and it's just so sad. I mean, we literally in the chat were just trying to keep ourselves awake from that defense attorney, listening to him talk about how abused the husband was. I'm like, are you serious? Are you kidding me? But in all seriousness, I know we're glad to see that those children will get justice for their mother. And hopefully, I just hope that the children don't end up in the system. Hopefully, there's plenty of family around to take care of them. That's the thing that blows me away about these adults that do this, and because this guy right here didn't want to lose his daughter, custody of his daughter. He knew that if he divorced her, he'd lose custody of his daughter, and he didn't want that. So now what he's done, instead of him losing his daughter has lost everybody in her life. So it's like the parent putting themselves before the child in these cases every time. Just, yeah, and on her birthday. I just can't. All right, everybody, y'all be good. Have a blessed evening, and I'll probably see you at some point tomorrow. Bye-bye.